The Ducks had one of their best seasons ever last year, and ultimately it ended in embarrassment. I mean, think about it 12 and 0, Big Ten champions in their first year in the conference. They have the biggest game ever in Autzen Stadium, and they win that game. Yet, when it came to the Rose Bowl, you can't even explain how bad it was from the very beginning. And even with that terrible ending, you have to be excited about where the program is going as a Ducks fan. I've been a Ducks fan since I can remember. My first game was watching Joey Harrington beat Portland State in the 2001 season. And even in the most exciting years under Chip Kelly, which arguably were more exciting than these years, it never has felt as solid as it does under Dan Lanning. Yes, I know we've been in the national championship game 2 years in the 2010s, and Dan Lanning has yet to get there and had his first college football playoff game. He's yet to even win a college football playoff game. But the competition is different now. It's not just about being the fastest team. It's not just about kind of breaking college football, which Chip Kelly did. It's about any given weekend, toe to toe, the Ducks on the offensive line, the defensive line, all of the defense, the quarterback position. It's not just about having the fastest skilled players playing the fastest pace. It's about every single weekend, the Ducks have a chance to be not just the best team on the field, but the best at every single position, even in games against teams like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Now, of course, Ohio State, that's always going to get a bit of a trigger with what happened in the Rose Bowl. But I think this year is a new era for Ducks football. It's stepping into the next era of the Dan Lanning coaching experience, and it's probably the most exciting era of Ducks football yet. And there's really three things that I can point to that I'm excited about, not just for the future of the program and where the program's going, but for this current season. And the first one has to be Dante Moore's upside. I know that he's not the experienced quarterback that Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix was, but I think that he offers something that they didn't quite give us, right? They didn't quite have that playmaking, game-breaking arm, right? We see Bo Nix succeeding in the NFL. I think that Dylan Gabriel will as well. And we saw what they were able to do with Will Stein's offense. And I know that part of the success for those quarterbacks at Oregon was the simplicity of Will Stein's offense for the quarterback position. But I think under Dante Moore, if we can see Will Stein pushing the ball a little bit more, using the middle of the field a little bit more, and going for more 10 to 15 yard passes, intermediate passes, as opposed to just the side to side and the long ball, I think that you could see Oregon become even more dangerous in those big games. Obviously, when they're playing Rutgers or when they're playing Washington, because Washington's not a real contender, they're going to be able to get away with just putting the ball out on the sides, being able to block the guys, being able to run the ball down their throats. But sometimes you need to be able to push the ball on the field. And I think that Dante Moore gives more of that dimension to the offense that is sorely needed, especially if you watch the Ohio State game. Obviously, they're starting behind the eight ball, but just a little bit of intermediate passing game that could, extend some drives really can go a long way when you're struggling against more of the top end teams in the country. And to go along with that, I think that the number one playmaker in Oregon's offense next year is going to be Ali Sadiq. They've talked about wanting to get him the ball more. They've talked about wanting to get him 80 receptions. And I think that, if he does that, he's looking at one of the best tight end seasons in the country. We're talking about Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren type season. And that is absolutely necessary with Evan Stewart going down, with Jurian Dickey not really on the team or whatever's going on with him, and of course, bringing in Corey Moore as a true freshman. Sadiq needs to be the focal point of the passing game. And if you're throwing to your tight end, you're looking in that intermediate, maybe it's closer to 5 to 10, but 10 to 15, 5 to 15 yards. That's in the middle of the field. That's what the Ducks really need to solidify drives, get those third and longs, and make sure that, it's not on the defense to cause turnovers or, hold them, or just on the running game, or just on, game-breaking speed on the outside. The more pro-style offense, the things you see in the NFL that sustain drives and turn a 3-play drive into a 10-play drive that at least ends in a field goal or ends in some kind of score is what they need to really put themselves on the level of those top teams when it comes to playoff time and those speed things aren't as easy to get to. And if the first 2 points were all about the passing game and really the intermediate passing game with Dante Moore and Ali Steek, the third most exciting thing is basically the entire defense. There are stars at all three levels of the defense. Obviously, you have Mateo Uyunglele coming back, Bryce Betcher coming back, and then bringing in Dylan Thieneman, who's an AP preseason All-American player at the safety position. There's really some exciting things going on the defense. And the defense has gotten better each season under Dan Lanning. He struggled a little bit when he first came in, which, you can thank Mario Cristobal for that. See Miami's defense any of the years that Mario Cristobal was there. But he has improved the defense every single season. And last season, even though the stats weren't quite as good as they were the last season in the Pac-12, there was a higher level of competition last season, having to play Ohio State, Boise State, Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. There's a lot of really good offenses that they played during the regular season, and of course, having to play Ohio State yet again in the Rose Bowl, which they did not succeed there. But I would argue that they can be even better, even though, 3 defensive linemen get into the NFL draft, a couple corners get into the NFL draft. There's this new level of Oregon that is a reload team. And I think that we're going to see that this season, not only through players that have been in the program that are stepping up, but some new faces that are being brought in, like Thieneman, like Bear Alexander on the defensive line, that are going to make this, I think, the best season for the Oregon defense under Dan Lanning, and maybe the best season for the Oregon defense this century, and especially at this level of competition that we'll be seeing this year. But of course, this season has quite a few questions as well. It's not an easy transition to this year, and that's part of the reason why I say it's a new era for Oregon football. There's 3 questions that come to my mind as well, and the number one is one that I've already mentioned, the wide receiver room with Stewart out and Dickey out for however long. What's really going on there? Is Decorium Moore going to be able to step in as a freshman and have the seasons that we saw Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith have last season, or some replicant of that kind of production? Or is he going to be more like a normal freshman that takes a little bit for them to get in there? If that's the case, there might be some trouble with the passing game. There might have to be a little bit more of the running backs getting involved in the passing game, which is a strong room. I didn't put it as one of the deciding things, but is a strong room with Mekhi Hughes and obviously Noah Whittington coming back. But what is the wide receiver room going to look like? There's going to be a lot of guys that we didn't see last season that they're going to have to step up. That was going to be the case anyway. Even if Evan Stewart and Jurian Dickey were still on the team, or still going to be able to play this season, there was still going to have to be some internal, people that step up and show themselves. So is Casper going to be that guy? Is it really going to come down to Decorium Moore, or is somebody else going to come, out of the shadows, Justice Lowe, and give them some support on the outside? It'll be interesting to see. And obviously a lot of it comes down to the quarterback too. So if Dante Moore is really that guy, maybe he'll make some of these wide receivers look better than they are, or make it easier for them to show how good they are, if he's, having the season that I think he can have, if, everything goes together. And part of everything coming together is number 2, and that's, can the O-line gel? The biggest success in the transfer portal was the offensive line, bringing in 3 new starters on the offensive line. Can that all come together? Isaiah World from Nevada is the big name, the 5-star incoming transfer that is, leading the way here. But they also bring in Emmanuel Pregnon and Alex Harkey, and all 3 are almost certainly going to be starting on the offensive line. And really, that is both a positive, right? That contributed to Oregon having the number 5 transfer class in the country. But offensive line is one of those things where they're working together as a unit more than any other unit, any other position group on the field. So are they going to be able to get the reps in during the spring, during the fall, to really make it work come, 2 weeks, come August 31st? Obviously, they have a little bit of time to build up with some of the games they have early on in the season, but are they going to be able to bring it all together? Because if we're talking about the intermediate passing game, you need to have protection for the intermediate passing game to work. If we're talking about the running back room being the thing that we're most confident about the Ducks being able to, have success on the ground. The offensive line needs to work. And we saw early on last season, that was a struggle. That was part of the reason for a little bit of a slow start with Dylan Gabriel, especially in the Boise State game. They weren't able to protect, and they weren't able to do anything past the line of scrimmage. They weren't able to run the ball. They weren't able to sustain drives the way they needed to. The Ducks would have lost to Boise State if it wasn't for a couple amazing plays on special teams that pulled the game together. Now, if they can pull it together and they can play up to their talent, the gelling happens. That opens everything up. And that, I think, quells some of those questions that you might have about the wide receiver room where there's not as much talent. The talent is there on the O-line. It's if it can all come together, then we can, worry about just Dante Moore doing what he needs to do, getting the ball where it needs to be, and everything else will kind of come together, because then you'll be able to lean on that run game. You'll be able to have some time in the pocket and really develop, especially before, week 5 in Happy Valley. The third thing comes back to the first question, and it all revolves around Dante Moore, right? Every single thing, besides number 3 of the excitement, every single one of these excitements and questions revolves around Dante Moore. He is the direction of the program. He is the direction of the 2025 season. And the question is, can he pick up where Dylan Gabriel and where Bo Nix left off? What they've done for the Oregon program, rebuilding it, getting it to heights that, yes, we have reached these heights, but these plateaus, the sustained success that Dan Lanning has started to build in Oregon. Can Dylan Moore pick up where they've left off and get to that next step? Get to that step where we have a quarterback in the program for 2-3 seasons that is fighting for national championships every single season. Under Dan Lanning, the Ducks have averaged 38 points per game. Can Dante Moore lead an offense that is scoring near 40 points a game in the Big Ten? This season, there's not as many of those super, super challenging teams that are going to stop you from doing that. There's a few of them, and that's where you're going to have to show up. Can Dante Moore make sure that offense doesn't fall off when we lose these 2 extremely talented, extremely experienced quarterbacks? Can Dante Moore pick up where they left off and move it forward? That's the biggest question. Of everything, that's all the questions, all the excitements comes down to that. Is Dante Moore the guy we think he is? If he is, there's no telling how far this team can go. All right, so let me talk about the schedule a little bit, and then we'll get to a prediction. If you watched my college football playoff prediction last week, then you already know where this is going, but a lot of you didn't watch that video, so we'll go from a little bit more of an Oregon perspective here. The biggest games of the season, number 1, obviously, is Penn State. This is one of the biggest road games, definitely the biggest road game probably since the Georgia game in Dan Lanning's opener. Biggest road game where they have a chance, and they're playing a true road game at Penn State. I think it's one of the more exciting games. As exciting as the Ohio State game was last season in Autzen, this might be just as exciting to see what this team can do in front of 110,000 fans. Never has Oregon experienced this, in the modern era of college football. So it's going to be very exciting to see. And, as much as it's going to be a little bit tough to go into Northwestern, that's their only road test before they go into Penn State. So they go into a stadium that I think holds like 20, 30,000 fans to a stadium with 5 times as many people in it. It's going to be very exciting to see that game. Number 2 is the game after the bye week after that game, which is Indiana at home. I think that Indiana is going to be good again this season. Maybe they're not going to be as good as they were last season, or maybe they'll be just as good and they don't have as easy of a schedule. But I think that is going to be a tough game. It's very lucky that they don't have to do those games back to back. The bye in between is very good. I'm not necessarily expecting victory in the Penn State game, but definitely the Indiana game. They have to come out and show who's boss. And then the third biggest game is USC. I think the second to last week of the season. Again, at home. Classic Pac-12, Pac-10 matchup. USC at home has been the biggest game in Ducks history a couple times when they played them in the mid-2000s, and they got an upset against the Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush Trojans in that era as well. So that's going to be one of the biggest games that they have to play. And sneakily, I think that the Iowa game is going to be tough. And if I'm not mistaken, that game is on the road. Yeah, that game is on the road, which that's going to be one of those games where maybe they'll be able to just overpower. Maybe they're just that's where the speed will kick in. Maybe that they're big enough and definitely fast enough to just run over Iowa. But Iowa likes those 10-point games. They like those 3-9 games. They like those no touchdown games. That's where what we're talking about with the intermediate passing game, and not just going past people, but sustaining drives and keeping your defense off the field is going to be very important in that game. It's not one of the biggest games, and it's not what I'm going to put as the trap game, but it's a tricky game there. That's a going to Arizona game. That's a game on the Palouse kind of game where it's just maybe you're not playing the best team, but it's not the same as any other game that you're going to have. And then I mentioned the trap game. I think it's Rutgers. I think just where that falls in the schedule and it being across the country in New Jersey. Obviously, when you have to cross the country to go play Penn State, you're up for that. You're ready to go. But we saw that Wisconsin game last season where it's just you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Eventually, it wears on you. That's the trouble with Oregon playing in the Pac-10. And I think that where the Rutgers game falls after the Indiana game, of course, after the Penn State game, and before you kind of start to even out your schedule a little bit, that game on October 18th at Rutgers is a tricky one. I know Rutgers is not the best team, but they're not terrible. They're a good team, and going on the road and having to play in New Jersey, they have a 50,000-seat stadium. It's not, not a cupcake place, so I'm nervous about that game more so than some of the other, games they have at home and Northwestern game. I think that game could be a tricky one where it falls in the schedule and how much traveling you have to do to get there. As far as the prediction goes, I think the Ducks are going to go 11-1. I think that they're going to end up losing at Penn State. I think that hopefully they make it a good game, but I just don't think they're going to have quite enough. Penn State's a really good team. On top of it being in Happy Valley, I just don't think that the Ducks are going to be able to pull that off. Maybe they surprise me and pull it off, but I just am not expecting that to happen. But I do think they'll be able to run the table the rest of the way. And although that loss should probably keep them out of the Big Ten championship game, because I think Penn State will lose again, but I think that there's going to be a couple of one-loss teams, unless Ohio State shits the bed again, like they did this last season. They should keep them out of the Big Ten championship game, but not keep them out of the college football playoff. And in that case, they should be hosting a college football playoff game in the first round, which would be very exciting. I don't know how much money it's going to cost to get that, but I'm sure there's a lot of you watching, and including myself, that are like budgeting, making sure you got enough money to get to that game, because that will be the craziest thing, the biggest sporting event in Oregon history. I know we've had a couple finals games here. I know that there's been, some early round March Madness stuff, obviously all the track and field trials, but a college football playoff game at Autzen is the biggest sporting event in Oregon history. And I'm going to find myself at that if it does, in fact, happen. As far as how the college football playoff goes, we don't know how that's going to end up going, but I'm going to put my homer pick out there. I think Oregon is going to meet Notre Dame in the college football national championship in Miami. I think the Notre Dame will be the number 1 seed. Oregon will probably be like 6, 7, somewhere around there. And they will meet in the college football national championship game. And the Ducks will knock off Notre Dame and become the 2026 college football national champions. It's a homer pick, I know, but that's what I think is going to happen. I think that Dante Moore is going to show us a new level of Oregon football, and Dan Lanning is going to start the new era of Oregon football in the 2025-2026 season. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and if you made it this far, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Are you a Ducks fan? Are you excited about next season? Do you think that they have a chance to not only reach the heights that they've reached before, but maybe exceed it with a national championship? And if not, or if you're not a Ducks fan, what are you nervous about, or what do you think is going to keep them from getting to that next level in 2025? If you want to watch more of my videos, I do have those for you. On this side, like I said, I did a college football playoff preview last week, so go ahead and check that one out if you're interested. I've also got my most popular video up here, which is like a realistic look at conference realignment in 2030. Go ahead and check that one out if you're interested. Other than that, I got my subscribe link here. It's almost college football season. We'll check you next time. See ya!